Good morning. This is the Elections and Rules Committee. The date is October 4th, 2017. My name is Jacob Fry. I'm the chair of this committee, and I'm joined by council members Gordon, Cano, Bender, Johnson, Quincy, Goodman, and Palmisano. We do have a quorum of this committee. Colleagues, we've got two items on the agenda for today. The first is the 2017 municipal election. It's receiving and filing a report on plans and preparations for this upcoming election. The second is the election judge appointments. Here to present, we have Mr. Carl. Mr. Carl.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. May it please the committee, I'm here on behalf of our Elections and Voter Services Division to report on final plans and preparations for the 2017 municipal election. Elections Director Grace Walk-Larowitz and Tim Schwartz, one of our professional administrators, are with me. I should also note from the start that updated copies of the report have been provided at your desks, and that this updated copy will be posted in our legislative management system online following this meeting for public access. The updated report includes current numbers on early vote turnout, which I will address a little bit later. To begin, I'd like to take this opportunity to remind everyone that Election Day is Tuesday, November 7th, which is just 34 days from today. There are three ways in which voters can participate in this year's election. First, voters can choose to cast their ballots by mail anytime between now and 3 p.m. on Election Day. There are several ways that voters can request an absentee ballot to be mailed to them. For example, by faxing the Elections Division at 612-673-2756, by sending an email to minneapolisabsentee@minneapolismn.gov, by making the request in person at our elections headquarters in room 201 of City Hall, or by contacting the Elections Division using Minneapolis 311. I'd also like to note here that based on prior experiences, we are strongly urging any voter opting to take advantage of the vote by mail alternative to ensure that their completed ballot is put in the mail by no later than October 30th. In order to assure that we receive it and it can be processed and included in the final tally of results. Sometimes we've found that mail delivery can be delayed by as much as up to 7 days, and therefore we want to encourage all of our voters using the mail option to put their completed ballot into the mail back to us by October 30th. Second, voters have the option to cast their absentee ballots in person prior to Election Day at the city's Early Vote Center, located at 217 South 3rd Street. That's 1 block northwest of City Hall. The Early Vote Center is open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and can serve Minneapolis voters who live anywhere in the city. We have assistants available every day at the Early Vote Center who can help voters that might need translation or language assistance, help marking their ballot, or other need. Beginning October 23rd, we will be expanding our service hours at the Early Vote Center starting at 7 a.m. and continuing through 6 p.m. on weekdays, and also 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays, October 28 and November 4, and from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. on the Sundays, October 29 and November 5th, leading into Election Day. Since 2014, voters no longer need to claim a statutory excuse in order to vote early, and starting just last year, we're proud to offer direct balloting in the final 7 days leading to Election Day. Direct balloting allows a voter to put their completed ballot directly into the tabulator and have it accepted and counted right then, right there, with all the same security and protection that voters receive on Election Day in the polls. Direct balloting begins on October 31st and will continue through November 6th at the Early Vote Center. Finally, voters who choose to wait until Election Day can cast their ballots and will be welcomed at all polls serving the city's 132 precincts on Election Day. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and everyone in line when the polls close will still be allowed to cast their ballots. So again, to summarize, voters have three options for participating in this year's municipal election, whether by mail or in person early before Election Day or at the polls on Election Day. There are no excuses, and an increased level of support and assistance is available to ensure a positive experience for all voters who engage in this year's election. There are, of course, a total of 22 races on the municipal ballot this year. That includes mayor, 13 council wards, the Board of Estimate and Taxation, 3 at-large, and 6 by-district park seats. As this chart illustrates, early turnout for this year's election has been incredible. In fact, with almost 600 people casting ballots on the first day alone of this year's early vote period, Minneapolis has set a new record for the highest turnout level for the first day of absentee balloting in the city. It marks an increase of about 82% when compared to the first day of early voting in the last municipal election, which was in 2013, when we served a total of 104 voters in person. Many of you were not members of the City Council in 2013, so it helps to provide some context for the continuing increase we're experiencing in Minneapolis when it comes to early in-person voting. That year, with only 104 voters in person on the first day, the Elections Division was swamped. We were still located in our original headquarters in room 1 on the ground level floor of City Hall. And as a result of what we considered that time huge turnout, we relocated our early vote operation to the rotunda of City Hall in 2013 in order to better serve voters. Today, we've relocated our early vote center to an entirely separate facility to ensure a secure environment that enables us to serve voters in a manner that assures every voter has the right to cast their ballot freely, independently, and without harassment, intimidation, or political influence. The operation of early voting has grown so dramatically in just 4 years in direct reaction to the level of turnout that Minneapolis voters have given every year since 2013. This chart also reflects the growing popularity of in-person early voting. Your constituents tell us frequently how much they appreciate the ability to cast their ballots early and the convenience that our early vote center affords them. I offer that both as a testament to the popularity of early in-person voting as one of the nation's leading turnout jurisdictions, but also to express our gratitude to you, our policymakers, for the investment you've made in this operation so that we can better serve and support our voters. Of course, in Minneapolis, we use ranked choice voting to conduct our municipal elections, and 2017 will mark the third experience that Minneapolis voters have with RCV. This slide highlights some of the milestones that Minneapolis and its elections division have made since RCV was adopted in 2006. Of course, it was first used in the 2009 municipal election when a full hand count of all ballots was required. At that time, it took a total of 15 days to complete the hand count and declare unofficial results. In 2013, we announced unofficial winners in 64% of the races on the ballot on election night, and we completed full tabulation for the remainder of the races on the ballot within 3 days. The improvements in 2013 were largely the result of some important policy changes made by City Council, combined with new voting equipment that was purchased by Hennepin County that year. The RCV ordinance was amended to enable unofficial winners to be declared on election night based solely on the totals of first-ranked choices against a maximum possible threshold in each race. In addition, voter intent policy guidelines were amended to give even greater opportunity to voters who might have mismarked their ballots so that those ballots could remain in play longer during subsequent rounds of tabulation. The new equipment produced an exportable data file that included all ranked choices for every candidate in every race on the ballot that expedited our tabulation. This slide shows the major difference between the 2009 and the 2013 tabulation methods. Because of the new equipment and the exportable data file that it produced, Minneapolis was able to eliminate the hand count and hand data entry steps from the original tabulation process, which also happened to be the most time-consuming and the most costly aspects of the process in 2009. Not only did we reduce the time and expense associated with tabulation, but we were able to also reduce the potential for human error by producing and securing the original data file, which was kept by Hennepin County, while Minneapolis used a copy of that data file for tabulation. This ensured that a checks and balances approach was baked into the process, even while we streamlined the steps to produce the official results in a shorter time frame. Based on lessons learned in 2013, however, we recommended that the RCV ordinance be amended to allow for batch elimination, that is, to enable multiple candidates to be eliminated in a single round of tabulation. In 2013, the ordinance was written in a way that still anticipated we would complete a hand count. And that's because we got the equipment so late in the year that we didn't have time to bring amendments forward. Moreover, the exportable data file that we used had never been used in any jurisdiction before that year, and we undertook a very thorough, in fact, a comprehensive audit using an outside firm of that system and the file to ensure that it could be replicated. Still, the experience of 2013's election showed us that having access to the complete data file of all rankings in every race could potentially enable us to further streamline tabulation. This was the amendment that staff proposed in 2014 that was adopted by this council. We are excited to use the new batch elimination procedure with this year's election. Here you can see an example of a voter data file showing a total of 10 candidates in a race. Because we can see all of the data for each candidate across all 3 rankings, it's possible for us to total up the rankings into a single aggregate number. And by doing so, it's possible to determine which voters are mathematically unable to surpass the threshold and can therefore be eliminated. In other words, there's no combination of subsequent votes available based on the total rankings that we have that would be sufficient to allow them to continue in tabulation. So, As this slide shows, based on that full data set, we know that we can eliminate half of all the candidates in this race because it is mathematically impossible for Howard, Becky, Gladys, Cynthia, and Delmont to secure enough votes to pass the threshold. Consequently, all 5 candidates can be eliminated in a single round of tabulation, leaving half the original candidates to continue forward to the next round of tabulation. Using this example data set, and based on our actual experiences from 2013, we would have to eliminate each candidate in a single round-by-round process for a total of 9 rounds before declaring an unofficial winner if we didn't have the option of batch elimination. Staff has been testing the batch elimination procedure using the actual vote data from the 2013 mayoral race. You'll recall that there were a total of 35 candidates that year in the mayor's race, and it took the elections team a total of 24 hours spread across 2 days to complete 34 rounds of tabulation before we could declare a winner. Using the same data from 2013, but incorporating the new batch elimination process, staff was able to complete the same amount of tabulation and finish the entire race in about 4 hours. So in 2009, it took 15 days to complete the tabulation with a full hand count. In 2013, it took 3 days to complete tabulation using the new exportable data file. And this year, using that exportable data file in combination with the batch elimination process, we were able to complete tabulation of the 2013 mayoral race, including all 35 candidates, in about 4 hours. Obviously, we're quite excited by that progress, but we also pushed ourselves to think creatively inside the box about how we could further expedite results. To achieve this, we've committed to having more than one tabulation team working at the same time. As this slide illustrates, we plan to have 2 full tabulation teams, each of which will consist of 2 sub-teams that each consist of 2 tabulators, both working simultaneously on 2 separate ballot races. We have additional tabulators on hand to provide relief so that we can keep both tabulation teams working nonstop as long as possible. By doing so, we hope to finish tabulation of all races on the entire ballot and announce unofficial results on Wednesday, November 8th. Of course, where possible, we will announce unofficial winners solely based on first-ranked choices on election night, just like we did in 2013. The scenario that I've just described would apply to those races where a winner could not be declared on election night. And again, it's our goal to finalize and announce the results in all of those races within 24 hours. We believe the new voting equipment, coupled with the policy and process improvements made over the past 5 years, will help us achieve that goal. However, because we in the elections business have learned to develop backup plans to our contingency plans to our original backup plans, we are scheduling the potential for tabulation to continue on November 9, if needed. In all instances, though, we aim to complete tabulation by the close of business November 9th, but only if we can't hit our first goal of completing the entire tabulation process by close of business November 8th. Which naturally leads to the question of where will results be reported? And as in 2013, the Elections Division plans to use our website to post unofficial results both on election night and in all subsequent tabulation rounds. Because of the limitations of our existing technology, it is not possible to aggregate and report all of the results from the city to the Secretary of State. Therefore, as was true in 2013, the first-ranked results in all races will be reported on election night, both by the city and by the Secretary of State. However, all further results will only be reported by the city's Elections and Voter Services Division via our website. And that means that the single best source for all results data will be the city's elections website, which can be accessed at vote.minneapolismn.gov. A picture of our website is shown on this slide, and on election night, as in 2013, we will be removing all of the content you see here from the landing page and replace it solely with results data. That way, no one needs to click through to subsequent pages to find the results. The results data will be posted directly to our main page on the elections website. We're also partnering with information technology and communications departments to provide data visualizations to accompany our results reporting. And we're excited to provide this additional means of contextualizing the data for voters and the general public. We have another first that we're rolling out with this year's election, electronic poll books. This slide features a nice picture of the unit showing that the neon green poll pad from the vendor No Ink. Hennepin County deployed this technology in all cities last year except Minneapolis, and that's because I didn't want to tackle the challenge of deploying new technology in conjunction with a presidential election. So we're joining those other jurisdictions this year. These devices, called EPBs, replace the bulky printed roster books that are used for voter identification and verification, check-in, and even same-day registration at the polls on Election Day. Those printed roster books were expensive and cumbersome, requiring significant resources to print and compile before Election Day. It also was a huge burden to update voter participation files in the statewide voter registration system after each election, since all of that data is recorded manually in those printed roster books. Transitioning to an electronic roster not only expedites voter check-in and verification and makes it easier to look up and assist voters, but it also saves money and time, makes post-election data update faster and easier, and less prone to human error, and it strengthens the integrity of our election. Each EPB unit includes an iPad, a stand, a battery pack, and a mini printer, what you see here. The iPads have limited functionality tied specifically to the single and sole purpose of checking, verifying, and when necessary, registering voters. By limiting its functionality, the security of voter data, access, and potential hacking is minimized. And because multiple devices can be interconnected and working at the same time in a single precinct, the EPBs are able to synchronize voter data in real time throughout the day, which helps us to ensure the integrity of the election by preventing individuals from voting more than once. EPB technology is currently deployed in 32 states as well as the District of Columbia. The agreement we have in place with Hennepin County provides that the EPB hardware, software, operating equipment, license, and vendor support are all provided at no cost to the city. The entire elections team completed training provided by the vendor No Inc., and we're in the process of providing specialized training on the use of this equipment to our election judges now. So we are encouraging voters to be on the lookout for these neon green EPB units in the polling place this year. We're confident the new technology will help ensure a successful and seamless experience for our voters. In 2013, the Elections and Voter Services Division launched its first voter outreach and education initiative, primarily focused on encouraging voter participation and providing education on ranked choice voting. And while we've grown this program substantially over the past few years, it's interesting to come back now to the municipal race where we got our start. Today, across the nation, the city's Elections and Voter Services Division is recognized in the industry as a leader in terms of our outreach, education, engagement, and communication efforts. I'm very proud of that, and I'm grateful for the work of our team who make it possible. A cornerstone of our education and engagement work is our voter guide, which we produced in 2013 and again last year for the 2016 presidential election. We get more compliments and positive feedback on this one piece than anything else we do. And we're excited to provide a voter guide again for this year's election. I have a small number of printed copies that I can share. Ms. Walker-Owitz is demonstrating this on the overhead. The voter guides are in production and will be mailed out to all households between October 31st and November 3rd, 1 week before Election Day. Content focuses on the basics of the election, the date, times that polls are open, how to locate a precinct and polling place, how to access a sample ballot, voter eligibility requirements, the Minnesota Voter Bill of Rights, as well as a list of all resources to assist voters in the process of voting. Voters should expect to begin receiving their 2017 voter guides November 1st.
Mr. Carl, Council President has a question.
Mr. Carl, I'm glad you got a lot of positives about the voter guide. I got a lot of negatives, and I know I shared that information with you about that last election cycle. Why are we mailing to every house? And what does that cost?
Chair Fry, to the Council President, I believe, I don't have my notes in front of me, but as I mentioned in our conversation last year, the total cost for the production was, I want to say, around 45 cents per piece. It was less than the cost of the postage to mail it out. We do the production in-house. We use a standard guide which talks about the basics of the election. So time, place, locations, operating hours, how to vote, especially in an RCV election, how to mark a ballot correctly in the ranked choice voting method, where to find a sample ballot, and of course the Minnesota Voter Bill of Rights, which is a statute that gives certain rights to voters that they have in casting their ballot. The production was done again this year as last year, mostly in-house, using our existing staff resources. In terms of the
can you get me a price tag about that? Because as I say, I got a lot of negative feedback.
I can absolutely follow up with that.
Thank
certainly.
you.
So it's 45 cents is the printing cost, and then there's the postage on top of that. So it's somewhere above $1, I'm assuming,
Yep.
per person. Council Member Goodman.
I just want to explain why some of this feels weird to us. So I go to all these neighborhood meetings in my ward every month, and I go with a list of things that communications sends me to communicate with constituents, and I've done that this past week. And one of the things on the list is early voting has started, and you should file a no request absentee ballot, and here's how you get to the early voting center. And it feels awkward because it looks like I'm pitching people to vote for me in a neighborhood meeting. And so then people ask me, are you supposed to be talking about the election in a neighborhood meeting? Because the neighborhoods have been told not to get involved in anything with the election. And then we get this pitch from communications and we're asked to put it in our e-newsletters. And so then it's basically using city resources to be encouraging people to vote. And while I understand that that's a line, it doesn't feel like it. It almost feels awkward. Like sometimes I have to read the room to determine if I should even say that, because it feels like the next thing out of someone's mouth will be, make sure you early vote. And someone's going to say, for you? So I just want to point out, it feels awkward to have the city in a city election year encouraging people to vote because we are the messengers. And in a way, it just feels awkward. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just telling you how I felt when I did it at my neighborhood meeting last night. And I'm not sure how to approach it any better than, I got this information from communications along with, don't forget, street sweeping starts on the 16th, and here's how you look up your street sweeping on the city's line. So I just want you to know why I think it feels a little awkward, and I'm not sure exactly how to handle that.
Mr. Chair, I think Councilmember Goodman raises good points, and I appreciate hearing that. It is awkward, I think, for incumbents to carry that message forward. As I think about our role in terms of voter education, engagement, increasing participation, it helps me to think of sort of a corporate model. And if I can excuse the council members from this application, for me, I think that we're target. And so I have so many stores across a certain jurisdiction, and there are lots of different products on my shelves. There might be General Mills, Betty Crocker, Duncan Hines. I don't get in the business of telling you which cake to buy. But I do tell you where my stores are located, that I have friendly clerks who can assist you, when my voting or when my business hours are open and that I have good parking, et cetera, or I'm located on good transit options and how to get to me. So our effort through voter education is really following that model, that early voting is now available and you could come here. Here's how to get your sample ballot. If you need help, we have it available. Oh, by the way, on election day, here's how you can get to your poll. So we're providing resources and information, but certainly not crossing that line into advocacy. But I do appreciate that if we, the city, are producing it and giving it to incumbents, it does have the appearance of sort of self-promotion. And so if there's a message I would encourage incumbents on the ballot, it would simply be to tell your current constituents who are also our voters about those resources, sort of what I've just said. These are the hours it's available. Here's how you can look up your sample ballot and stop it at that. But I recognize that is an awkward conversation.
Mr. Chair, that is exactly what I do, but it does feel weird because we're also instructed directly not to have neighborhood associations get involved in politics or campaigns, and then you go to the meeting and it is part of a larger bit of information, and we do our due diligence to send it out because it's part of the city's structure, but it does feel awkward, and I guess I'm just expressing how I feel, not whether or not it's something that should or should not happen.
Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to note that I've heard nothing but positive reviews of the voter's guide. The people in Ward 2 and outside of Ward 2 that I come in contact with a lot of the neighborhood groups and people that are on the borders, think it's fabulous. They get a lot of excellent information there. I also really appreciated at Seward Neighborhood Group, last time I went there to make my council member report, and I'm sure I had a little blurb in my written report about early voting and how to register in election day. Which I felt great about. There was somebody from Voter Election Services there, was talking about doing outreach that had some translated brochures, some registration. The neighborhood group got that. They understand that part of the things they can do is also turn out people to vote, and they promote that. And I just think it's really key. And we want civic participation. If we're actually going to be an effective democracy and we're going to have the confidence of the people, we need them to come out and vote. We need them to get involved in it. And I think we can do that in a way that is separate from telling them, who to vote for or what, how to vote on different ballot measures. And it's key that we do that. I think you as a department should feel like we are evaluating and measuring you on voter turnout and ourselves and the city. We want people to come out and vote, and we want to have great elections. And I think the voter guide is key to that, and so is all this other communication. So we've got to figure out how to finesse it and how to do it right so we're all comfortable and nobody crosses any line about that we're not supposed to cross. And I think we can and we are. And I just want you to know that I haven't heard any criticism of the voter's guide.
Council Vice President.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just also wanted to share another point of view on this. I actually think it's one of the most important jobs of the city to, because we are in charge of municipal elections, to encourage residents to get engaged in the process of influencing city government. And to the point of neighborhood associations, they are engaged in involving residents in city government. They also can do issue advocacy. So there's a lot that they do beyond things that they're not supposed to do, which is endorsing candidates, that kind of thing. So I have right now a number of neighborhood organizations that are investing their money and their time cooperatively on a huge Get Out the Vote project. So I think a lot of our infrastructure, I hope, is getting engaged in this. Whether or not mail is the right thing, I don't know. I'm sure that's going to continue to get evaluated. But to me, the importance is that there's actually an investment, whether it's the mail piece, whether it's continuing to evolve that to engage our residents and continue to have a goal of increasing how residents are participating and influencing government. So I also, just as someone who's been a candidate multiple times, I just on my personal level, I don't know that I've ever felt awkwardness between trying to divide my role of what do I do apart from my city messaging that I send out on my city email account, which is where I do my newsletter, and which is where I do appreciate the kind of nonpartisan messaging that comes from communications, because it is very different from then what you do on your personal time when you're campaigning and doing things to promote yourself as a candidate. So maybe that's just continuing to kind of evolve how we're comfortable with that. But thanks for your work.
Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to echo my appreciation for all the different ways that we're working to increase voter turnout in communities across the city. In my own ward, I have some neighborhoods where voter turnout is half than in other precincts or neighborhoods. And I know that's true across the city. There are wards where voter turnout is double or triple that of other wards. And at the end of the day, as Councilmember Gordon said, our democracy is best served by full involvement. And we know that communicating with folks in different ways is how we are going to reach more people. We've worked to increase voter registration through the ordinance that Councilmember Fry authored, helping to try to get more renters registered. So I think all of the things that we're doing, the social media, maybe the regular mail. I mean, I'm not an expert in exactly how and which of these things are, and I appreciate the folks who are the experts who are putting the resources to their best use and hopefully continuing to increase turnout. We have been, but it's still, we still only have about a third of the people in our city voting in municipal elections, and I hope all want to see that number rise. Thanks.
Councilmember Gordon, I believe it was from the, okay. Mr. Chair, please continue if you could kind of hit the high points as we're running short on time here.
Sure. So looking back at this, I wanted to give a update on the status of early voting, which includes current data through the close of business last night. And this can be found starting on the 8th page of the report. Again, early voting began on Friday, September 22nd this year. It continues through Monday, November 6th, when it closes at 5 p.m. During the first 8 days of early voting, the elections team has received a total of 2,336 absentee ballots, of which 2,198 have been submitted in person at the early vote center. That means that approximately 94% of our absentee ballots thus far have been received in person at the early vote center. Again, that mirrors those trends I talked about, that over the last few years, it's not the mail that's been increasing, it's the in-person early voting that we're offering. Of the 2,336 ballots that we've received, the elections team has accepted 2,305 ballots. 20 ballots thus far have been rejected for various statutory reasons. In cases where a ballot is rejected, the team reaches out to the voter to inform them of the reason for the ballot being rejected and offer them the opportunity to spoil that ballot and cast a new replacement ballot. The rejection rate is less than 1% this far, which tracks on average with prior years. And again, we do contact those voters to give them every opportunity to correct any errors on their ballot so that they can cast a new replacement ballot that can be tallied in the election after spoiling the first one. At this time, Mr. Chair, I'd like to invite our Elections Director, Grace Walker-Rhodes, forward to draw by lot the tabulation order for wards and precincts. Pursuant to state law, tabulation is conducted according to ballot order, which means we start with mayor and continue on with city council by ward, board of estimate and taxation, park board at large, and then park board by district. In order for the 13 council wards and 6 park districts to be randomized, we draw that by lot. So while we normally would conduct this process just in the elections office, we thought it would be nice to do that here in front of the committee to give a little extra publicity and transparency to the public to the drawing of those lots. So, Grace.
Mr. Chair and members of the council, my name is Grace Walker-Rhodes, and I'm the Director of Elections and Voter Services. As Mr. Carl had mentioned, we will try to declare all winners on election night. But those offices that need to proceed to tabulation the following day, we want to have a transparent random order of the council wards as well as the park board districts. I will draw the order first for the ward, and then I will redraw for the park districts, and then we will present on the screen that order for your reference, and it'll be posted again, part of this report. First is
If the clerk could cue the game show music, please.
number 3, Ward 3, Ward 9, Ward 5, Ward 10, Ward 11, Ward 4, Ward 2, Ward 7, Ward 8, Ward 1, Ward 6, and then Ward 13. Technical problem. There we go. All right. For park board, 6, 3, 5, 2, 1, and then 4. And so you have here's the summary of what the order will be if we have to tabulate the next day. And this will be part of the official report. Finally, I would just like to mention that if you want more information on what to expect on election night and the specific processing of tabulation, we do have a public forum on November 1st, Wednesday at 6 p.m. for the public, our voters, candidates, and media, and it's going to be at the Hennepin County Library. So stay tuned. If you have more questions, please attend and we'll provide more information at that time. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that leaves only one other aspect of this remaining for our presentation. That's the proposed timeline for canvassing and certification of election returns once the complete tabulation of all ballots is completed. Pursuant to Minnesota Statutes 205.185 Subdivision 3, the City Council serves ex officio as the municipal canvassing board. And in that capacity, it's your responsibility to canvass, certify, and declare final official results of the municipal election. The process must be completed between the 3rd and 10th day after unofficial results have been published. Once the results have been certified, a 7-day contest period begins, during which time any voter or candidate may contest the certified results. After the close of the contest period, and assuming no contest is made, the city clerk will issue certificates of election to the declared winners in each race, according to the results that are certified by the canvassing board. In reviewing the council calendar, staff recommends the meeting of the Municipal Canvassing Board be set for 9 a.m. on Wednesday, November 15, immediately prior to the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole that same day. This is exactly 1 week after Election Day, and we hope 7 days after final unofficial results are published by the Elections Division. So that would fit within the statutory timeline for conducting the canvass. At that time, staff would be prepared to draft an order for the canvassing board that would certify the official results of the 2017 municipal election, declare the unofficial or the official winners in each race on the ballot, and direct the city clerk to submit a certified copy of the official results of the 2017 municipal election to the Hennepin County Auditor, and to file and preserve the original results of the election in accordance with Minnesota election law. Once the canvassing board has acted, the 7-day contest period would begin the next day, Thursday, November 16, and would continue through close of business on Wednesday, November 22nd. Assuming no contest, the city clerk would expect to issue election certificates to winners the following week, Monday, November 27, after returning from the Thanksgiving break. And with that, Mr. Chair, I've concluded the report. Staff and I are happy to stand for questions the committee may have.
Thank you, Mr. Carl. We've all been so preoccupied with other things. I think we all forgot that an election was coming up on November 7th, but thank you for letting us know and the full rundown there. And thank you for the report. Any questions for staff at this time? Mr. Carl? No? That being said, I will move that we receive and file this report. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. That item passes. We have one remaining item on the agenda for today, which is to approve the election judges and to certify them up. Mr. Carl.
Mr. Chair, this is a routine item that is required under state law. Every year that we have an election, the council must approve the appointment of election judges. The briefing materials provided in your packet outline all of the names we have thus far. There are 2 related actions. We ask that you approve the appointment of those we've submitted and also authorize the elections director, Ms. Wackler-Rowitz, to appoint additional election judges deemed necessary to provide sufficient staffing for election day polling places if the number we have on the list now is insufficient to do so. So those 2 actions are the standard actions we bring forward every year.
Thank you, Mr. Carl. I forgot to mention previously the Councilmember Glidden has joined us. And so I will, any questions on this topic? All right. So I'll go ahead and move this item forward, which is to approve the elections judges as well as allowing them to approve new ones as need be. All those in approval, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. That item passes. Before we close, I want to give a huge thank you to our elections department and Grace and your whole team. You guys are doing an extraordinary job. The fact that early voting is up by 82%, I know that that's no small burden on staff, but I will say that the burden is worth it for the service of democracy. And thank you very much for all of your work. It's hugely appreciated to every one of you. We have nothing else on the agenda for today, so this meeting is done.
To colleagues, we'll just need to pause to allow them to turn it off and turn on the media, and then we have a very short committee of the whole meeting.